There are two neighbors on the same street. Same neighborhood, same property taxes, same school district for their kids. Both families earn household incomes that most people would consider comfortable, not rich, but solidly middle class. Around $95,000 a year each. From the outside, they look identical. 2 cars in each driveway. Lawns that get mowed on weekends. Amazon packages on both porches. Kids in similar clothes, going to similar activities. Neither family is flashy. Neither family is struggling, at least not visibly. But if you could see inside their financial lives the way you can see inside their living rooms, you would see something that would stop you cold. Family 1 has $11,000 in savings. They have 2 car payments totaling $980 a month. They have a mortgage that stretches them thin enough that a single missed paycheck would create a genuine emergency. They contribute just enough to their 401k to get the employer match because that's what someone told them to do years ago and they never revisited it. They take 1 vacation a year, financed partly on a credit card that doesn't quite get paid off before the interest kicks in. They feel okay. Not great. Okay. And they tell themselves that this is just what life costs now. Family 2, same street, same income, looks almost identical from the outside. But they have $74,000 in investments. No car payments, they drive paid-off cars that are 3 years older than their neighbors. Their mortgage is the same, but their total monthly obligations outside of it are a fraction of the first family's. They max their retirement contributions. They have 8 months of expenses in cash. When the water heater broke last spring, they paid for it that afternoon and never thought about it again. Same income. Same neighborhood. Same decade of adult life. One family is building something. The other is maintaining an appearance. And the terrifying part is this family 1 doesn't know which one they are. This isn't about income inequality or the housing market or how hard things are right now. Those things are real, but they are not what separates these two families. This is about a trap. A specific, invisible, socially enforced trap that targets people who are doing well enough that they never feel the urgency to question it. A trap built not from poverty or recklessness, but from comfort, comparison, and a set of unspoken rules about what a successful life is supposed to look like. The middle-class lifestyle trap doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like progress. That's the entire problem. I'm going to show you the exact mechanisms of this trap, how it's built, how it's maintained, and how it slowly converts your income into an appearance of wealth while systematically preventing you from building any. By the end of this, you'll be able to look at your own financial life and see, clearly and honestly, whether you are building something real or funding a performance. This is not comfortable. But it is necessary. Trap 1. The middle class has a spending identity, not a building identity. This is the foundation of everything else. At some point in the last 50 years, consumer culture fused with class identity in a way that is almost impossible to separate. Being middle class stopped being an income category and became a lifestyle category. It became a set of purchases, habits, and possessions that signal membership in a particular social group. You own a home in a decent neighborhood. You drive a reliable, reasonably new car. Your kids are in activities. You take a vacation. You eat at restaurants. You have the right appliances, the right streaming services, the right gym membership. Not luxury. Not excessive. Just normal. But here's what most people miss: this identity is commercially constructed. Every item on that list has an industry behind it that profits from your belief that it is a requirement of a respectable life. The car financing industry. The vacation industry. The youth sports industry. The home improvement industry. They did not create these norms accidentally. The psychological consequence is profound. When spending becomes identity, cutting back doesn't feel like financial strategy. It feels like losing status. It feels like failure. It feels like you're falling backward into a class you worked hard to leave. And so the spending continues, not because you've chosen it consciously, but because the alternative feels like a threat to who you are. The first step out of the trap is understanding that your spending is not your identity. It is a series of choices. And choices can be changed. Trap 2. Lifestyle inflation moves faster than salary growth. Almost everyone knows the concept. Almost no one applies it to themselves. Lifestyle inflation is the automatic expansion of spending to match and typically exceed income growth. You get a raise. Within 6 months, Your expenses have absorbed it. You don't know exactly where it went. You just know that the raise didn't change how you feel about money. Here's the number that makes this concrete. If your income grows by 4% this year and your spending grows by 4.5%, you are moving backward in relative terms even while earning more in absolute terms. Do that for 5 years in a row, and the gap between what you earn and what you keep has narrowed to almost nothing regardless of how many raises you received. It gets worse. Lifestyle inflation is not random. It follows a predictable social pattern. When you earn more, you can afford to move to a better neighborhood. Better neighborhood means different social reference group. New reference group has different spending norms, slightly bigger houses, slightly newer cars, slightly more expensive restaurants. You adapt. You have to. Social belonging is a deep human need. And the new norm quietly becomes the new floor. Nobody in this process feels like they're being reckless. Everyone feels like they're just living normally for where they are in life. That feeling is the trap. Trap 3. The monthly payment economy has rewired how you perceive cost. This is the one nobody talks about in polite company. We no longer live in a world where you assess whether you can afford something by asking what it costs. We live in a world where you assess whether you can afford something by asking whether the monthly payment fits in your budget. And that single cognitive shift has quietly destroyed the financial lives of an entire generation of otherwise intelligent people. A $42,000 SUV financed over 72 months at a common interest rate feels like a $650 a month decision. It is not. It is a $50,000 plus decision by the time interest is included. And it is a decision that claims $650 of your monthly cash flow money that cannot be invested, cannot build an emergency fund, cannot give you options for 6 years. Multiply that logic across a car payment, a furniture financing plan, a phone upgrade plan, a buy now pay later purchase, and 2 credit cards carrying balances, and you have a person whose monthly obligations are so layered that their actual take-home pay has been pre-spent before they even check their account. But here's what most people miss: the monthly payment model doesn't just cost money. It costs clarity. When you break every purchase into small recurring amounts, you lose the ability to see your total financial picture accurately. You feel like you're managing. You feel like things are under control. The numbers in isolation look manageable. The aggregate is quietly devastating. Trap 4. The home is not the investment everyone told you it was. I want to be precise here, because this is widely misunderstood. A home can be a good financial decision. In the right market, at the right price, with a sustainable mortgage, homeownership builds equity and provides stability. That is real. But the middle-class trap version of homeownership goes like this. You buy the largest home you can qualify for, because that's what you're supposed to do. You're told to stretch it's an investment. It will appreciate. You'll grow into it. So you buy at the edge of your qualification, which means your mortgage consumes a disproportionate share of your income. Then comes the furnishing, the landscaping, the renovations, the upgrades, all of which feel natural and necessary for a home of this size and in this neighborhood. The hidden consequence is this: your capital, the money that could have been invested and compounding, is locked in an illiquid asset that you are also paying to maintain at an increasing rate as it ages. The average American homeowner spends between $15,000 and $20,000 per year on home-related costs beyond the mortgage. That is money leaving your wealth-building capacity every single year. I'm not done yet. The deeper psychological trap is that because a home feels like an investment, spending on it feels productive. A $12,000 kitchen renovation doesn't feel like a consumption expense. It feels like improving an asset. Sometimes that's accurate. Often it is simply spending dressed up in investment language, and the middle-class identity system actively encourages it. Trap 5. Your social environment is financially contagious. This one is uncomfortable because it implicates the people you care about. Research in behavioral economics and sociology is consistent on this point. Your financial behavior is heavily influenced by the spending patterns of the people immediately around you. Not in a conscious, calculated way. In a slow, ambient, atmospheric way. When everyone in your social circle takes international vacations, not taking one starts to feel like deprivation rather than choice. When every parent at school has their child in 3 paid activities, having your child in one starts to feel like failure rather than reasonableness. This is social comparison operating below conscious awareness. You are not choosing to keep up with anyone. You are simply calibrating to what feels normal, and normal is defined by your immediate reference group. The middle class trap intensifies this effect because the middle class is, by definition, a social category. Membership requires visible maintenance. Fall below the visible markers and you feel the social pressure immediately. This is why middle-class financial stress is so often invisible from the outside, because maintaining the appearance is the entire point, even when the reality underneath is increasingly fragile. Here's the insight that can actually help you. You do not need to change your friends. You need to consciously introduce a different reference group into your awareness, people who are building real wealth, whose lifestyle may look similar or even less impressive on the outside, but whose balance sheets tell a completely different story. What you normalize determines what you pursue. Normalize financial strength, not financial appearance. Trap 6. Retirement savings are treated as optional until they become urgent. This is the quiet catastrophe building in the background while everything else demands attention. The middle-class financial life is full of immediate, visible, socially validated demands on your money. The mortgage payment is urgent. The car needs to be maintained. The kids need things. The vacation was already booked. Retirement is abstract, distant, and invisible, which means it consistently loses the competition for your present-day dollars. The result, statistically, is alarming. A significant portion of households in their 40s have less than $50,000 saved for retirement. Not because they haven't earned enough. Because the middle-class spending infrastructure consumed the money that should have been invested, consistently, for 20 years. But here's what most people miss: this isn't a retirement problem. It's a math problem with a time component. At a 7% average annual return, $500 invested per month for 30 years becomes approximately $567,000. The same $500 per month for 20 years becomes approximately $260,000. The 10-year delay costs over $300,000. The money required to compensate for starting late is almost always more than the person has available, which means the middle-class trap doesn't just affect your life now. It determines the entire shape of your life in the decades you were counting on to be free. Trap 7. This nuisance is the anesthesia that prevents the audit. This is the mechanism that keeps all the other traps in place. The middle-class lifestyle is busy. Both partners working, children and activities, social obligations, home maintenance, career pressures. The pace of daily life is relentless in a way that is not accidental. A busy person is a person who does not have time to stop and examine whether the life they're funding is the life they actually want. Financial audits, genuine, honest examinations of where your money is going and whether it aligns with what you actually value, require quiet. They require the willingness to sit with uncomfortable numbers and uncomfortable conclusions. The middle-class trap provides endless reasons to do this later. Something always needs attention right now. And so the financial life runs on autopilot. The same subscriptions renew. The same habits persist. The same assumptions go unquestioned. The money keeps moving out of your account, through the economy, into someone else's revenue, and the gap between what you earn and what you keep stays exactly the same. The most financially transformative thing many middle-class households could do requires no income increase and no dramatic lifestyle change. It requires 2 hours, a spreadsheet, and the honesty to look at what the numbers actually say. Most people never do it. The Busyness makes sure of that. Go back to those 2 families on the same street. Family 2 did not have a higher income. They did not get lucky with an inheritance or a stock tip or a business that took off. What they had was a single conversation, about 7 years ago, where one of them said, "I want to understand where our money actually goes." And they sat down, for an evening, and looked at the real numbers. What they found was not dramatic. It was mundane. 2 car payments on cars they could have bought used for cash. A handful of subscriptions nobody was using. A pattern of small, recurring spending that served no one's actual happiness. A retirement contribution set at a percentage that someone picked years ago and never revisited. They made quiet changes. They bought their next cars with cash. They redirected the car payment money into investments. They stopped spending to maintain a performance and started spending on what they could specifically name as valuable to their actual lives. From the outside, nothing much changed. Still the same neighborhood. Still the same school. Still the same lawn on weekends. Family 1 is still okay, still comfortable. Still telling themselves that this is just what life costs. They are not wrong that life costs what it costs. They are wrong about what it's costing them. The middle-class lifestyle trap is not a failure of effort or intelligence. It is a failure of examination. It is the cost of running your financial life on the default settings that a consumer economy installed in you before you knew enough to question them. The trap is now locked. But you have to notice you're in it before you can walk out. If this made you think about your own financial default settings, share it with someone who's working hard and wondering why it doesn't feel like enough. Because it probably isn't them. It's the trap.